All right, Dolphins fans, let's talk edge rushers in today's training camp battle preview video. Position that's a little bit top heavy. We'll talk about that here as we go on through the video. But as we do, I want to hear from you before I get started. Your thoughts on the position of edge rusher as the Miami Dolphins get set for training camp later this month. Go ahead, drop your thoughts. Who's making the team? Who are the impact guys? Who are you excited to see in training camp? All that information, go ahead, drop it in the comments below. But I talked about this position being a bit top heavy, and that we'll get to it. And let's just get to it right now, because as you see, there's no debate, there's no camp battle for your projected starting edge rushers. It's Jaelan Phillips, who has burst onto the scene, who is one of the most athletic, up and coming edge rushers. And thank God he is on our team, because this dude is a Hulk. He is mammoth. He seems to get bigger every single time they would show a picture of him from OTAs or minicamp. I swear to God, this guy just had like another vein popping out of his bicep. Something is going on. This guy is just a huge human being, and he's still so young, and he's got all that untapped potential that hopefully Vic Fangio can continue to unlock as he enters year 3. And then speaking of Vic Fangio, you got Bradley Chubb. We don't need to spend too much time on this graphic. Like I said, the starting edge rushers are about as solidified as anything that you're going to find on this team. But the nice thing about Bradley Chubb, he comes in last year, kind of unlocks Jaelan Phillips a little bit, but Bradley Chubb's stats, like actual like tackle sacks, don't necessarily come with it. Now, the stat that came with it, and it's the stat that everyone's heard about Bradley Chubb, it's that edge rusher win rate percentage, how him and Jaelan Phillips were both near the top of the league. And that's great. And the reason I like that is because that kind of stuff can lead to sacks. Think about this Dolphins defense now. You got health at cornerback. You've got studs at cornerback. You're having a fresh start with this defensive line now that it also includes Raekwon Davis, Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins. This defense can turn it up now. And now that we have those cornerbacks that can hang, not necessarily get burned, can kind of hang with their guys a little bit longer, make that quarterback hold on to the ball, we might see something special here with Jaelan Phillips and Bradley Chubb. And now you got Bradley Chubb coming up with that defensive coordinator that he kind of entered the league with, where he had some of his best seasons with, a defense that he's already familiar with in Vic Fangio. That is what's the word that I'm looking here for? Kind of like an underrated aspect of getting and acquiring Bradley Chubb last year and then having him where we can play him to his full strengths already this year. Like I said, I probably already spent more time on the starting guys than I needed to, because where things get a little bit interesting is with these projected backups and with the guys that are kind of playing for a roster spot at this point in time, because we'll get to that here in a second. But the thing about Emmanuel Ogbah, the guy's shown, you all know him. He had his year 3 last year, cut short due to injury. But what did he do prior to that? Oh, man, I've said this before, but he came to the Dolphins as one of the better edge-setting, defensive end, edge rusher kind of guys in the league. That guy is playing the run game. So another underrated component of something that's important to a defense. He is awesome at that. But what did he add to that? I think it was 9 sacks in back-to-back years, his first 2 years with the Dolphins. So not only was he crushing it in the run game, but man, he was making his presence felt at the quarterback with the hits, the hurries, the sacks were getting there. He was crushing it last year, or the first 2 years he was here. And then last year, gets out to the slow start, ends up having the season-ending triceps. We don't really know what we have here. We're then kind of forced to move into the Bradley Chubb era. So that kind of puts Emmanuel back a little bit maybe on the depth chart. But at the end of the day, we see Emmanuel Ogbah play with his hand in the dirt, can play a little bit more of that defensive line approach. So he's not necessarily going to lose a ton of snaps. Like maybe his snap count isn't as high as it was his first 2 years with the Dolphins, but still an underrated player that can compete and that we know that has really good production in the past, so that the drop-off isn't all that bad if and when we rely on him for more of those meaningful snaps. I'm really excited to see how he bounces back. And then you got Malik Reed, who was signed this offseason. It was only a 1-year deal, but another guy, kind of like what we had talked about with Bradley Chubb, Malik Reed, some of his best seasons came in Denver when Vic Fangio was the coordinator. So another familiar face, another guy that's a little bit more used to the system and the scheme that we're going to run. But where I want to talk about, because the main battle at this particular position is probably for right behind Malik Reed or for Malik Reed's kind of snaps or even roster spot, because it's a lot of question marks after that. It's Cameron Good, it's Mitchell Agude, it's Garrett Nelson, Zeke Vandenberg. Good, who kind of hung around last year, practice squad, didn't he looked decent in preseason at times, did enough to warrant hanging around. I was a big Cameron Good as like a late round prospect last year. Glad they have him, glad he was able to stick. He's the one pictured there. But then you got all the undrafted free agent guys. It's Agude, it's Nelson, it's Vandenberg, all guys who have flashed so far in OTAs and minicamp. But man, the name that sticks out and the name that we've been hearing and told that, you know what, if the Dolphins had to trim their roster to 53 today, it'd be hard to leave a Mitchell Agude off of it. That's your guy. That's the one that you want to keep an eye on when it comes for battling for a roster spot in general. And if he can continue to prove what he's been doing when the pads come on, when the lights come on with preseason games throughout this offseason, the rest of training camp, Mitchell Agude is a name to continue to just monitor. We talked about him, oh gosh, probably a few weeks ago now, how he's taken the steps that Jaelan Phillips kind of did from UCLA to Miami, has a little bit of history with injuries, ends up going to Miami. And then guess what happens? Now he's following in Jaelan Phillips' footsteps. He's really just soaking in all that knowledge and just how do you mix up your moves? How do you end up playing in this scheme? What are the little nuances that I can do to not only make this roster, but man, try to push somebody for meaningful snaps? So that's what I've got my eye on when it comes to this position in training camp. But Garrett Nelson was making some splash plays in OTAs and mini camp. I was really, Zeke Vandenberg was, I put on a little bit of tape once the Dolphins announced that they signed him as an undrafted free agent. That was my guy. He was kind of like holy cow, I really like this guy's tape from that last year, Illinois State. What do you have, like 14 sacks that year? That was the guy that I thought had the best chance of sticking. But now it's just, he just finds himself in the thick of this backup role, this kind of roster spot battle that we're going to be talking here. So that's where the biggest kind of camp battle comes for me. It's how does Malik Reed kind of bounce in? Does the team end up liking and say, you know what, we're in week win now, Mo. We need Malik Reed's experience to make this roster and to get the meaningful snaps? Or is it like, well, we're comfortable with a guy like Garrett Nelson or Mitchell Agude or Cameron Good, and maybe we can skim a little bit of money. We can keep the cheaper guy, have a little bit more money freed up, and still not have the play on the field really fall off that much from what a guy like Malik Reed is. So that's where the biggest battle is for me. It's how does Malik Reed respond to being on the new team, and how do the UDFAs come in? That is where the biggest battle lies for my money. But like I said, let's hear what you've got on the position. Where's the battle lie in your eyes? Curious to see what you've got. But that's what I've got for today, Dolphins fans. If you've missed any of the other positions we've been doing, go back through, get subscribed, check those out, leave comments on those ones as well. That's what I've got for today, Dolphins fans. Until next time, Fins